Sending positive vibes to all truth seekers. Welcome to the Library of Humanity. This is going to be the first of what I'm going to call my vodcasts. And my vodcasts are going to be much more informal, more chill, a little bit longer so we can go more in depth in these ideas. These ideas will be a little bit more advanced than probably my normal YouTube videos. I don't know, maybe even in the future I'm just going to do a vodcast. And this is for people. This podcast is intended for people who are maybe just beginning their search for truth. They're starting to take it very seriously. A little bit of background for me is that I have been taking truth very seriously since probably I was 16, and I'm 27 now. And it's very important for me to instill that passion for truth in others. I know that it's not possible. One thing I've thought about is that maybe only 10% of people actually take truth seriously. I don't really know if you've ever experienced that. When you talk with your friends and family, I don't know if all of them take truth as seriously as you do if you take truth very seriously. And if you think about it, what type of friends are you hanging out with? Are they taking truth as seriously as you? And you kind of start to compare. Maybe it's a little bit unspiritual or unenlightened, but you start to compare yourself with others. But I think that's natural for egos and people. But all of us have egos. So this is kind of one thing is that one idea in spirituality, whatever you want to call this, really is. You can call it spirituality. You can call it truth seeking. You can call it philosophy, which I've thought about philosophy, and now I kind of want to teach it. But you have to think about philosophy in a bigger sense, because philosophy again is the seeking of truth. That's what it is. That's the definition of it, coming from the ancient Greeks. Is philosophy is the search or love for truth and wisdom. And so if you think about it, in your friend and family group, you tend to maybe speak more or talk with people who are into truth more frequently, and you want to become friends with them in your life if you are a truth seeker yourself, because you're building a community. You have to. I mean, being a truth seeker is kind of lonely, is actually very lonely. Because again, 90% of people, or I don't even know the percentage. I guess if you comment on this video, let me know what you think, the percentage of humans and people who are actual truth seekers. And we could think about that in context, like, is that all scientists truth seekers? I went to a very good college, and I only met a few of my professors are actual truth seekers in the sense that I would consider seeking truth. Most of them are in the philosophy department, in the religion department. But I do believe in integration and integral learning. So to be a true truth seeker, you study everything, literally everything. You study physics, chemistry, biology, geology, psychology, philosophy, history, religion, literature. You have to study all of it, art and music as well, because the truth is the commonality between all of that, and actually not the commonality. It's actually what all of the educational endeavors are happening in, which is absolute infinity. I don't know if any of you follow actualize.org, Mr. Leo Gura. I have a video on this YouTube channel about actualize.org. If you are into that, he talks about absolute infinity. Absolute infinity. And absolute infinity is, if you are a meditator, if you want to continue following my channel here, you're going to have to try and meditate. That is the only way that you're going to understand what is being said in this channel, is if you take meditation seriously. Because what meditation is philosophy, and it's deeper, because when you study more and more philosophy, science, truth, you realize, and art really helps you realize that truth cannot be understood with human language. To know what I mean by that, you might want to go to my YouTube, these 2 YouTube videos that I have. That's a little mini series, part 1 and part 2, called The Nature of Human Language, which we discovered that human language doesn't arrive at truth. It's only a map of truth. So there's truth, and then there's a map of truth. Maps of truth is everything in our society, everything that school is about, everything that your business is about, everything that physics and engineering is about, everything that medicine is about. That's a big one, is medicine. Medicine is a map of truth, not truth itself. So, and of course, in this YouTube channel, and what I'm going to start calling my Vodcast, is truth itself. And how are we going to get there? Again, you have to take meditation seriously. If you don't, you're going to run the risk of, what do you think? Run the risk of not arriving at it at all. Just playing mental games. It's just playing a game. Because that's all that language is a game. And you're playing, and in some of my videos, in my video on human language, you realize, or we talked about, that all language is just a game. I'm playing a game. My friends are playing another game. People in Zambia are playing a whole other game because they're in another culture. So truth has to be what all of these language games are happening in, because that is all of these perspectives. If you want to understand the God's eye view of the universe, think about this. So you have like a bird's eye view. Think about the God's eye view of the universe. That is that you take all perspectives and you want to see it truly for what it is. And what are all perspectives? All perspectives are not just you and your friends and your family and the people in your country. It's every human who has ever lived, whoever will exist, all animals that have, are, and will exist, all plants, all sentient beings. What is sentience? Sentience is how most scientists and psychologists define consciousness. And so you have to take all of those perspectives into account. All of them, all sentient perspectives. And I would also argue not just a sentience, but the entire universe is freaking conscious. It's amazing. It's freaking mind-blowing that the entire universe is conscious at the infinite level, because the universe is actually finite in the way that science is talking about the universe, because they talk about that it started at the Big Bang. But existence has always existed, and universes, because existence is infinite, but the universe had a beginning. So what was before the universe? It was timeless. But it's extremely possible that the nature of universes is to go in and out of existence. So it's a constant Big Bang and then a constant big collapse. Big Bang, big collapse, Big Bang, big collapse. But what physics is seeing right now is that the universe is continuing to expand, but even at an accelerating rate. So from my perspective, or I would argue, I'm not a physicist at all, but the universe is really young. Even it's 13.5 billion years old, but it's just going to keep expanding for as long as sentient beings on Earth are going to exist. So that's why you have to take into consideration that sentient beings, again, conscious plants, animals, and humans. Plants are extremely conscious. You can learn about how trees in a forest communicate with each other, not just that, they help each other out. Because the goal is to grow gigantic trees. That's what an old growth, mature forest looks like, is that you have these gigantic trees that they help diversify the ecosystem. My brother is an ecologist. He would be able to explain that better. But it's like the forest knows the big trees are the leaders of the community. And that's what an ecosystem is a community. It's the way that maybe some scientists explain it, probably not ecologists, but some scientists explain it as that the nature of evolution is fighting and killing. But actually, if you look at it another way, or probably a more proper way, is that the nature of evolution and ecology is altruism and cooperation. And because that is the best way to survive, especially for human beings now. So we have to get this notion of evolution, that evolution is the survival of the fittest. We have to throw that out of the door, because that no longer fits for humans. In this vodcast, I'm going to talk about this theory called spiral dynamics. I'm gonna have to dedicate 2 hours or 3 hours to that. It's probably gonna be a couple of vodcasts. But basically, towards the beginning of human history, you have to know that human history began 7 million years ago. But the human beings that were around at that point basically looked like chimpanzees. So we probably wouldn't consider them our cousins, even though genetically they definitely are. But we got to pick a year here. Well, there was a human species called Homo erectus, kind of a funny name, Homo erectus, and they existed for 1.5 million years. Homo sapiens, what we are right now, we've only been existing for 200,000 years. So, and Homo erectus again, 1.5 million. So Homo erectus is actually probably more successful in an evolutionary sense than Homo sapiens so far. However, Homo sapiens are creating the Anthropocene. The Anthropocene, if you don't know what that is the age that Homo sapiens are recreating the surface of the earth, and not just the surface, but the entire climate of the earth, by using fossil fuels, and the agricultural revolution, which began about 8,000 years ago. So with the agricultural revolution and with the use of fossil fuels, which is adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, that's the creation of the Anthropocene. Anthropo, it means human. So anytime I have a word that begins with anthropo, for example, Anthropocene, and I'm gonna also be using in this vodcast a word called anthropocentric, which means that a view is human-centered. And basically all human views are human-centered. Unless you develop more and more towards what I'm going to call tier 2 thinking, and I'm going to call it stage turquoise thinking. Stay tuned for my podcast, because I'm going to explain what that is. I'm not prepared to talk about it right now. I'm in the middle of reading the book called Spiral Dynamics, so you have that to look forward to. I'm going to be able to explain the greatest theory that I've ever read. The greatest theory I've ever read. I'm just going to talk about it more in the future. I can't dive into it right now. But basically, it starts with Homo sapiens and it's going to end in the future. So it's a theory that talks about all of human history from the beginning of Homo sapiens to today and then into the future. But almost no social theory explains existence that way. So again, you can stay tuned for spiral dynamics. If you want to understand more about spiral dynamics right now, I would just check it out on YouTube. And one of the best is going to be Leo's podcast, Leo's video, actualize.org, on the 8 stages. There are 8 stages. But he starts at the middle stage, stage blue. He starts there. But he'll explain in general what spiral dynamics is. Yes, and on this vodcast, I'm going to talk more about spiral dynamics to explain human culture. Because human culture is everything that we know, actually. So kind of getting back to humans understanding truth. All humans know is culture. For example, our culture tells us that there is this like physical world out there that has these laws, for example, that Newton explained. Or in biology, that maybe there's laws in biology. I'm not sure if there are, because evolution is a theory, it's not a law. It hasn't been proven. The only laws that I know of are in physics. If you're a chemist, if you study chemistry, please comment below and tell me if chemistry has laws or if they're just theories. Because I didn't major in science. I just know the philosophy of science. That's way different. It's actually not. Maybe it is different. You can comment below on that too, whether you think the philosophy of science and science are different. But philosophers of science can explain science better than a lot of scientists, because a lot of scientists are experts in something very specific. So it's like philosophers can explain, for example, all of food, but a scientist would only be like a sushi chef. So could a sushi chef explain all about food? No, they would just be experts on rice and tuna and whatever else goes in sushi, and seaweed. I like sushi a lot. So humans explaining what truth is, all we can know is our culture. Because again, like the idea of a physical universe is just an idea created by culture. That idea was introduced at some point in history. Another is the fact that we are humans. This idea might blow your freaking mind. That the idea that we are humans, that idea arose in human history. It's not objective that we are humans. That is not objective at all. If you study like ecology, you'll see that humans are nature, and nature is human. There's no barrier in truth and reality. There's just no barrier between anything, which eventually I'm going to talk about. I don't know in this podcast or not, but that gets you to the theory of an object. What is an object? Because the nature of an object, how most people conceive it, is that there's a boundary between it and not it. That means the nature of being an object means it's probably physical, but ideas are not. Ideas are objects. But we're talking about substantive objects. That they have like a boundary between being them and not being them, the rest of the universe. But we have to understand that is a creation of the human mind, because it helps us to have objects, because objects help humans survive. Even humans are objects that don't really exist. There's no boundary between me and the rest of the universe. There's no boundary at all. So that begs the question, the corollary is, what is the difference? I'm going to say this very slowly. What is the difference between me and the universe? If there's no boundary, that means I am the universe and the universe is I. That should blow your mind. And that's true with every single separate object that you see. That is true. Culture taught us that there are separate things, because culture taught us language. And again, language necessitates a limit. That is the nature of language, is limit. So to go beyond, if we want to understand truth, like we do on this channel, we have to go beyond language. And so that brings us back to kind of an integrative education. And I'm studying for my master's in education. I feel like I'm a little bit overqualified for it because I've studied the philosophy of education. I think about it all the time. But I have to get a master's degree. Yeah, we could think about this, like you have to have some credentials in order to become a middle class person. And like it's being a middle class person in society is not an end in itself. It's not the goal, right? Being a middle class person is the means to becoming yourself. So that is. Have you heard of Alan Watts? Alan Watts really explained this well, saying that when we start going to school from kindergarten, first, second through high school, they tell you that like the purpose of life is to go to college, kind of like gotta be college ready. You gotta be college ready. You gotta be college ready. For you that are in high school right now, that probably makes a lot of sense. Or any of you who are teachers in the high school level or middle school, like everything is all about college ready and critical thinking to become a citizen. So yeah, there's two. There's being a citizen and being college ready. So that's what they talk about in high school. So for those of you who haven't been in high school for a long time, you got to remember that's what it was about, is critical thinking skills to become college ready and a positive and effective citizen of our economy. They don't say the word economy, but that's what they mean. That's what high school teachers and curriculums. It's actually not high school teachers. You got to get this understood. Is that high school teachers? They love the kids. They love the kids. Their expertise is not creating curriculums that are effective. So that's a different profession. The people who are creating the curriculums are for-profit businesses. One is called Pearson, Pearson. So Pearson, for example, yesterday I had to take this teaching strategy exam. It was a 2-hour multiple choice test, and that comes from Pearson. So these for-profit businesses are creating exams to standardize teacher training and students and curriculums, and standardize exams for high school students as well. So that is the goal, is standardization of education for whenever there's business and profit that is wanted. It's all about standardization. And when for-profit businesses are in the education system, they view children and teenagers as future workers. So maybe this doesn't sound like sketchy to some of you, but you have to view children and teenagers first as in this channel we're talking about truth. You got to start seeing children and teenagers as truth. Their nature is no different than God. And God is just another word for absolute infinity. And we were just talking about objects. The essence of an object is infinity. So the essence of a child is infinity. The essence of a teenager is infinity. So when the school system is saying something like, we need our children to be effective future workers, I mean, there's a lot of issues with that, because you're limiting their potential right there. You're saying that you're saying that they're going to become something for certain, like for sure, and as if you know what the future is going to look like, right? We need to use critical thinking skill. Like we need to use teach these critical thinking skills to the teenagers of today to become effective workers of tomorrow. But that's under the assumption that they know what tomorrow looks like, right? because we have no idea what tomorrow looks like. I mean, there's going to be work, because that's the nature of humans, is working. But we don't know what work is going to look like. I mean, the way that high schoolers are being taught right now is it's really tech-based technology, which I would say is good, because that's probably going to be the nature of middle-class jobs in the future. But going back to the middle class, that is almost the purpose of how education is set up right now. That is its purpose, is to teach you how to enter the middle class and the upper middle class. And there's lots of issues with that too, because there's disparity between white students and Asian students, and then non-white and non-Asian students. And I can, on a whole nother vodcast, I can talk about disproportionality. That's a word, but it's really, or people talk about the achievement gap between white and Asian students and non-white Asian students. But that's all a systemic problem, systemic thinking. So in the future episodes that I'm going to be talking about spiral dynamics, we're going to discuss systemic thinking. That really everything in nature and in civilization, again, there's no difference between nature and civilization. It's all systemic and systems based, and there's no free will in any of it. There are no who's. In philosophy, you talk about who, meaning that there's a thing with sentience, or like a human type thing, a who, because we or a person, but there really aren't persons. There really aren't, because the nature of a person is to have free will based on our idea of a person. But really, when you think of reality in a systemic fashion, you see that what free will is the illusion or the fairy tale that humans have control over the system, or that humans can manipulate the system. But that's just not true at all. Because when you start meditating, you see that you are a system. You see that your mind is a system. That's number one, is that your mind is a system. A lot of people assume that they control their mind. No. And what society is the collective mind. That's what society is the collective mind. That's why it's so unhealthy, is because you're taking all of these crazy people, because the essence of being a person is craziness. That's not bad. Being crazy is not bad at all, because it's beautiful. It's because it was created by the infinite creator. Everything you do is created by the infinite creator, which is your essence.